Well, it's been a while, but we're back with Hot Sauce Takes, where I take you as a viewer every Monday and I react to your hottest takes. So ever since I was waiting for me to get the community post, and now it's here. It's the first Monday, so expect every Monday a new community post like you will see on your screen every Monday. So if you want to potentially be in the video, comment down below your hottest takes. And also like to say that I'm no longer doing every single take, because before we were a lot smaller, I got like 5 or 6 takes, but now that we're getting a lot more, there's still a big chance of you making the video, but there's not an 100% chance like it was before. So before we get started, it would be greatly appreciated to subscribe to the channel. You're on the Mix channel and make constant NBA content that you're surely going to enjoy. Also, leave a like if you like the content, and if you're new, comment down below, I subscribe, shout out. There, I'll shout you out, reply to your comment, and hear you out in the next video. So that being said, let's begin. Now, the first take comes to us from the GOAT, Alex Caruso himself. And he says, the San Antonio Spurs have a top 3 young core in the NBA today. In this season, there were a lot of low expectations for the Spurs, but they are currently the 5th seed in the Western Conference. Right now, at the current time of the recording on this video, they're 17-12. And their record is over teams like the Portland Trail Blazers, Denver Nuggets, and Golden State Warriors. And that is with LaMarcus Aldridge being really bad and being moved to the 6-man role. DeMar has been really good, and he's just one of the most underrated players in the league. His development as a passer has been insane, and he's just been shooting a lot less and more efficient, just removing all of those tough mid-range, fully contested shots that just aren't good, and now he's been just a lot more efficient. But the main reason for the success of this team is the young guys in DeJounte Murray, Derek White, Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, and Keita Bates-Diop. Murray is the franchise point guard, drafted, I'm pretty sure, in 2016 or 2015, and he's currently averaging 16 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists on amazing defense. When Murray got that ACL tear in 2018, a lot of people were scared because in his rookie or second season, he already made the all defensive team. So we knew this guy had a lot of talent, and now that he's just came back and has adjusted again, he's been an absolute beast. Keldon Johnson has been a pleasant surprise to this team. And surprisingly, he actually came from the Kawhi Leonard trade, so that trade isn't looking as bad. So it's basically DeMar DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl, and Keldon Johnson for Kawhi. The Spurs, of course, lost because it's Kawhi Leonard, but it's not as bad. And Keldon Johnson's been really good. It's only his second season. He's averaging 14 points, 7 rebounds, 2.3 assists on 47% shooting. And Derek White has also showed a lot of glimpses in the playoffs and bubble. He has had some injury issues, and that contract, if he's going to play like he did at the playoffs, that's definitely a good contract. But if he doesn't live up to that, it's still a long-term, pretty big deal, but I'm cool with that contract. Now, I do agree with Caruso saying that I do agree that they have an underrated core, but not a top 3 young core in the league. I still personally have the Denver Nuggets, 76ers, Celtics, Pelicans, Thunders, and Grizzlies young core over the Spurs. Now, the next take we're going to be looking at comes to us from a couple people. And the first one comes from No Pasta, and he says, the Mavericks will make the playoffs if Porzingis is healthy. But Luke then takes it to another level, adding, they will at least be a top 6 seed. The Mavericks are up there for the most disappointing teams in the 2020 to 2021 season with the Atlanta Hawks and Boston Celtics. They have had virus and injury issues. Pingus has played only 18 games out of 32, while where in those games he's putting up 20 points and 8 rebounds on 47% shooting. Porzingis, personally, I'm going to kind of go on a rant, but Porzingis is a 7'3" center with a small forward body. Now, this came from Kenny, and I 100% agree with this. Porzingis would rather take a layup or a deep three rather than just driving through contract and using his freak of nature, just his body, to just dominate. And speed 7'3", that of course gives you such a big advantage, being so much taller. And yes, it's fine if you take like 6 threes a game because they're probably going to be wide open, but he really has to cut down on those really long threes. I think Kenny also gave us this example, but against the Blazers, he was driving in, and instead of just, he could have dunked it, instead he did like a finger roll layup, and Derrick Jones Jr. blocked it. So if he just dunked it, none of that would have ever happened, and I'm sure he would be on Sports Center. But I just think that he is a crazy talent, but just injuries are scary, and when he plays, sometimes you want him to be a bit more aggressive. Now, the Seth Curry for Josh Richardson trade was a big mistake. Yes, Josh is a better defender, but that's just not enough, as they are the 24th defense in the NBA, and the gap between their defense, the defense of Seth Curry and Josh Richardson, and their offense is just so much bigger for Seth Curry. Josh Richardson has been bad from three, and they definitely made a mistake currently looking at it. But they're still a good team, and they're only 2.5 games off the fifth seed and having a pretty decent schedule, but I think they can definitely be a top 6 seed. Now, the next take comes to us from Yari, and he says the New York Knicks will make the second round of the playoffs and get a star in the offseason. The Knicks are the 4th seed currently, and it's just crazy how much things have changed. They were the worst team, and in the 2019 offseason with major cap space, they expected Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Zion Williamson, but instead got RJ Barrett, Todd Gibson, and Julius Randle. They traded Porzingis, which looked like a pretty bad trade at the time, where they of course got DeAndre Jordan, an expiring deal, Wesley Matthews, who they basically cut, Dennis Smith Jr., and those 2 firsts, but also providing them a lot of cap space. Now, I think it's really interesting to examine how this trade looks now, because before it looked like the Knicks got an absolute steal. Dennis Smith Jr., yes, he was good, but he didn't really fit with their superstar talent in Luka Doncic, and ever since he's been to New York, he has been kind of off. But just for the Knicks, things have changed. With this cap space, they signed Julius Randle and Marcus Morris. And Julius Randle, yes, he was called Blade Man. He was clowned his first season. But his second season, he's literally an all-star, averaging like 23, 11, and 5. And that's really good for him. It's really good to see Julius Randle be good. I think, like Kenny also said, because Kenny's my favorite YouTuber, he also said that we should stop putting a ceiling on a guy who's 25 years old. And Julius is only 25. I think people forget about that. And just like, he's basically doing very similar things to last year, but hitting them more efficiently. And I think that's just natural development that they really want. Now, in the draft, yes, they didn't get Zion, but RJ has been a lot better. And just with that cap space, they also signed Marcus Morris. And Marcus Morris was a really good player, but in the trade deadline, they traded it for Mo Harkless and the Clippers' first-round pick. That Clippers first was then traded to the Utah Jazz, the 23rd pick, and then traded to the Thunder for Emmanuel Quickley. Okay. Then they traded Dennis Smith Jr. for Derrick Rose. So basically, they got, for Kristaps Porzingis, they got a potential lottery pick this year, though. Like I said, I think the Mavericks will make the playoffs. You have and another first, which can be used in a future trade. They get an all-star in Julius Randle, a really solid young player in Emmanuel Quickley, and making them just changing their whole culture around. Now, Thibodeau has changed this toxic culture to just be really good. I've already made a video on we were all wrong about talking about the Knicks, so you can check that out if you want to. But it's just really crazy. Now, I do think that the Knicks will make the playoffs as the 8th to 5th seed, but I don't really think they're going to make the second round. But now that they are a competent team, free agents might want to come, and they can still make a trade with Kevin Knox, potentially trading RJ Barrett, a plethora of picks, and the New York Knicks are definitely going in the right direction. Now, the next take comes to us from Dame Time, and he says Kawhi Leonard is the closest to Michael Jordan ever skill-wise. So I'm pretty sure Jimmy High Ruler made a video about this, and that was a really cool video, I gotta admit. MJ is, of course, the GOAT, being a 5-time MVP, 6-time champion, 6-time Finals MVP, a GPOI, and just so many other awards, while still being an elite two-way player. Now, the top players that I would personally compare to Michael Jordan, this has to be Kobe Bryant and Kawhi Leonard. I would personally kind of give the slight edge to Kobe, for he is a shooting guard, a top defender, a top scorer, and just he has 5 rings to MJ's 6. Both Kobe and Jordan have insane work ethics and took things personal. Now, I can personally see both sides, because Kawhi is also an elite defender, an amazing scorer, and just flat out winners. And skill wise, I guess you can see both, but I would personally have Kobe, but it's definitely really close. Now, the next take comes to us from Incredible, and he says Karl Anthony Towns isn't a top 3 center anymore. Now, ever since 2018, Karl Anthony Towns and the Timberwolves have been an absolute disaster. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. The Wolves just aren't good and have had one of the worst records in the entire NBA, and this year having the worst record in the whole NBA. And just ever since he got in that one car accident, Karl Anthony Towns has just been really hurt and just flat out not as good. And just when he's back, the Wolves still aren't used Karl Anthony Towns right. They aren't feeding him in the post enough. And Anthony Edwards can't take 6 more shots than him, and that definitely should not occur. Now, with the rise of Bam Adebayo and Rudy Gobert, it's really tough to see if Cat is still a top 3 center. Before, it was a no question, and I'm sure, and Embiid and Jokic are no doubt better than Cat, Bam, and Rudy. Just they're MVP guys, but just deciding between Cat and Bam, it's really tough. Now, I personally would have Cat just a slim over Bam and Rudy, just because we know what Cat can be still. And yes, Bam and Rudy have been on much better teams, much better defensively, but just Cat, his offense is just so crazy, and offense is more valuable than defense. You can clamp up all you want, but if you can't make a shot, you're losing the basketball game. And that's just how the game of basketball works. So I personally think he's still number 3, but it's definitely debatable. Now, the last take comes to us from Lil Nee, and he says that, he has a couple, I'm only going to be looking at some of them, and he says that the Celtics, Blazers, Spurs are all first-round exits, the Jazz aren't getting out of the second round, and Steph Curry is a top 3 player. Now, there's another take on here, but I'm not really going to focus on that one. Now, currently, the Boston Celtics are the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference, being 16 and 16. And fun fact, that would actually be the 10th seed in the Western Conference. Yeah, that's crazy. But it's just going to be really interesting if the Celtics can do it. And I only think if they can get out this first round, it all depends on if they're the 4th or 5th seed. Because you do not want to face either the Bucks, the Sixers, or the Nets all in the first round, and especially for the Celtics team. Now, I think that they have a good chance at beating the Bucks, but maybe, you still have no idea. But I'm sure they would rather face a team like the Heat, and yes, the Heat or the Pacers instead of those 3 teams. Now, I think they will make it out of the first round, but if they face, with those top teams, they actually might face a lot of trouble. Now, just for the Blazers, they're currently 18-14, being the 6th seed right now. The Blazers, I was really high on them because they made a lot of good moves, but just the West is going to be really unpredictable. I already talked about the Spurs a little bit, but I don't think they're going to really go too far. Now, then, also, now, talk about his next take. The Utah Jazz are by far the 1st seed in the Western Conference and have the best record in the whole NBA. But the question is, can they beat the LA teams in a 7-game series? I personally, I don't really think so, mainly because they lack the star power that Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James all have. But they destroyed the Lakers, but they didn't have AD. They did lose to the Clippers in a close one, but if they're knocking down their threes, playing good defense, Rudy isn't getting abused in like the pick and roll, I think that they actually have a good chance at beating the Clippers. Now, his last take is Steph Curry is a top 3 player in the league right now. And it's going to be it's close to say. Curry has been an MVP player, leading the Warriors to a 19-16 record, being the 8th seed in the very tough Western Conference. I personally would have LeBron James, Kevin Durant, and Kawhi Leonard over Curry, then have Curry or Giannis at 4 and 5, but those are definitely just switchable. So that being said, that's going to be the end of Hot Sauce Takes number 3. I'm not exactly sure how long I want to make these. Maybe make 10-minute videos, not include as many takes and don't go in depth. Make 15 or 16-minute videos like this one is. Comment down below which one you would rather watch. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and I'll see you on next time.